So the talk about, again, with mental health and where we are with that, it leads from one avenue to another. And so it's now developed where I mentioned the grants. If you can even apply for what is known as a substance abuse grant, and you lead it into mental health counseling for young people, because the shootings are occurring with young people against other young people. But in the Sandy Hook situation, it was a crazed individual, a man who had some mental health problems, and he was actually an adult that came into the schools. And what has happened to him? Nothing. There's no penalty there. He's living the life that he couldn't have at home. He's living it well in the prison system.
Well,
so
Dr.
all of
Douglas,
this has to change.
Yeah.
It has to change.
One of the things I know, we all have a couple of questions for you, so I'm going to let Pastor C start with his, and we're going to work our way around. But you brought up some interesting points, particularly around some of the conditions of the young people in the home environment. But in terms of the active shooter mindset, I think that's one thing we're all concerned about. And, of course, with the understanding, active shooters are not the only violent thing going on in school. We know that statistically speaking, the active shooter incidents don't happen as often as bullying, the schoolyard fight, someone tripping somebody in the hall intentionally, and those types of things. So I just want to make sure we make that clear. But we do have a few questions, but I'm going to let Pastor C start, and then I'll follow up with some few things.
Dr. Douglas, great information, and I'm sure that you have a lot more to share. But I do have a question for you. What can you recommend for parents or guardians or friends who suspect their loved ones or colleagues is suffering from mental illness?
What do I expect guardians who, say that again?
What can you recommend? For parents or guardians or friends who suspect that their loved ones are suffering from mental illness?
I sincerely recommend that they don't sit in a closed room and think about it too long, that they definitely seek help. There's always the 311 number that they can call to seek help. There are people who feel that they don't want others to know, and that's sure. Maybe you may not want your neighbor to know, but you go to the right institution for that type of help. There are, for instance, the NAACP, the different colleges that have educational areas there for the counseling. There are those that they even went to their doctor, their medical doctor, any of those type of professionals. And I always recommend the church. I recommend the church, number one. I do. And then I look at the school guidance counselors. There are some parents that don't even get along with the guidance counselor, but you know that you have a problem at home. Put your own ideals down and work for your child, because there is that cry of the child that I talk about a lot in domestic violence, that intergenerational gap of helping and fronting for yourself but forgetting about your child. So I really ask the parents to put that aside and move forward with getting assistance.
Yes, ma'am.
And I also had a question, because I wanted to just kind of touch on what you were saying about the guidance counselors, because I've actually found that to be a huge resource on the high school and collegiate level. But one of the things that you said that was something that I was going to bring up later on is that even with the recommendation of parents or teachers, sometimes it doesn't necessarily give them the leverage to talk to these students. So I guess my question is, on the high school or collegiate level, I feel like it's a little bit different seeing your peers go through it than when it comes to parents and guardians, because sometimes we as peers can see what's going on before parents do. And a lot of the time when we do go to the resources that we know that we have, like counselors, they tell us the same thing. They're like, okay, well, thank you for your concern, but we can't really do anything about it until either that student approaches me or something out of the ordinary happens. So I guess the question is, what can you recommend on that level to do? And also, is there a way that they are kind of reinforcing to students that they have those resources? Because I mean, I had an incident at my college and I had no idea that we even had free counseling services away from our guidance counselors. We had actual counselors who were waiting there, but it was kind of the same principle. It's like, yeah, we have it here, but it kind of goes unnoticed until something happens. So what are some solutions that can be put forth in order to raise awareness about these resources, and what can we do as students to kind of report these things?
And BZ, you asked a great question, and I mean, it's right on, and I hope there are a number of young people listening because of the type of peer relationships. Young people, and this is the millennials and younger, they are actually talking and sharing with one another what's going on in their homes. Some of them they don't want to talk about, for instance, my father beats my mother. Right. But they will share it with their peer because they don't want their father to get in trouble. So that peer, and hopefully it's a strong individual, will then say, well, I don't know what to tell you, but that peer who is a strong individual has strength at home. So they may go and say to their parent, oh, John just told me some things and he needs our help. What should we do? And at that point, their parent may say, this is what I suggest we do. Let's talk to the school about it, or let's talk to the guidance counselor about it, or let's talk to the pastor about it, or let's talk to his parents. Maybe I could speak to his mother or his father or so. Right. But sharing that information with another some strong professional or someone who has the right directory of resource to attend is good. Now, in some schools, there is peer counseling within the schools. In Maryland, and I work within the Maryland high school system, there we developed, and it continues, and it's been a while, I've checked back, they still have it, where they have peer counselors, they have peer group facilitations, and they openly talk among themselves. And it goes on. It's like going to a AA meeting, you know, and they're able to talk, and they befriend one another, and they begin to support one another. So that type of supportive system is very needed, very needed. I'm going through a personal situation where the young people are concerned about knowing that their dad has cancer, and it's supposed to be a secret.
Hey, Dr. Douglas, hold on for 1 second, because you are generating some interest in our callers. So we're going to put a caller in to ask a question of you as well. Caller, you're on with Dr. Douglas and, of course, Ann Beasy, Pastor C, and the Chief.
Hello, everyone. My name's Gina, and I'm calling from Atlanta, Georgia.
Hi, Gina.
Hi, Gina.
Hi there. Dr. Douglas, I heard you talk about what the community can do, what parents can do. My comment has more to do with how our children are not being taught empathy. They have a lot of FaceTime with computers and smartphones and tablets, and they're really plugged into a whole lot of violence. And I really think that parents don't pay attention because they're happy when their children are quiet, and they don't really realize what's going on, because when their children do post things on Facebook, or, well, no, not Facebook anymore, but Instagram or Snapchat, parents are usually blocked. Wow. And when their students' peers see these things going on, unless they're really plugged in with an adult who they feel comfortable calling and saying, you know, little Johnny has been taking pictures with an AK-47, and he says he's going to blow everybody away. You know, what can we do? So, I truly want to know, what do you tell a parent? You know, I hear you saying that, you know, parents should go to their church, but a lot of our parents nowadays aren't plugged into churches.
Well, before Dr. Douglas answers that, Gina, let me ask you a question. As a parent, do you feel that the institutions where your children are attending are prepared for those types of situations? And have they discussed these things with either your student, or has information been provided to the parents about this is what you can expect if we have a tragic incident on the campus? Or
these are the resources that are available to your child if you suspect these signs?
I feel that all of my children have graduated from high school, so I can speak for what happened last year and what I see, because I still volunteer in the schools now. They don't talk about it until an incident has happened. Guns are found in schools every day, but you don't hear about it unless your children come and tell you about it, or unless a teacher friend tells you, okay? Every now and then, when that happens, if the phone calls start, then you get a letter that says this happened, or we found a gun. But even then, you don't necessarily get the entire truth. And the only time the spotlight is shown is when something really bad happens, like someone is actually shot or someone is killed. Do I feel that my children are safe? Well, I've got 3 in college. Okay, now my number is in for the texting announcements or the alerts, so I know when something happens, and I have had that same feeling, Chief, when I know that something is going on and I haven't been able to reach my child. Okay, so I feel they're as safe as they are anywhere, because you know anything can happen at any time.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's really where I am. I just keep in prayer and try to keep those channels of communication open.
Sure.
I'm curious to see what Dr. Douglas has to say.
Well, I'd like to, respond to that. And basically, I hear the caller talking about how she doesn't hear about something occurring or has occurred until it hits the news. And that's going to, what I would suggest that a number of schools are doing, and it's very popular here in Florida, is to get with your the parent teachers associations and ask the schools to alert you. What they're doing here in the state of Florida is when something occurs in the school, such as a threat may come into the school, the principal is sending out email messages. They use email a lot. The parents are talking to the teachers on email quite a bit these days. But they do a blast email to say that this has occurred in the school and we are taking action, or we're looking into it. And then they keep them advised to say the FBI has entered the school. We may be sending the children home early. That type of notice is going out before it even hits the media. So if it's not happening where you are, I would really suggest that you work with it. Now, the Bowie State University is one that has started that, and that's where they had the shooting a couple of years ago, and it was not the only one. It was, I think, the last one, hopefully. But they are also sending out those type of alerts that they have set up files in the student affairs area where they can promptly see the person's name and number that in emergency make this contact. So using the email, hopefully the emails are posted, they are sending out those type of notices. In the last semester, before the end of the last school year, that more threats were coming through after the killing in the Palm Beach County School, and the notices were coming in to say that in the boys' bathroom, for instance, there was a notice that said, I'm going to blast this school up tomorrow afternoon. That's not taken slightly. Right away, they brought in the people of authority to review that, to do finger DNAs, do what they can to try to find the person that did it. It took them, after two bathroom writings in the boys' bathroom to find the person who did it. But each time there was a notice sent out, because I actually said, oh, bring your children home.